Hello, everyone, and welcome to this live broadcast and premiere of our new webinar series, Additive by Sandvik, Material Matters. My name is Paulina Kjellin, and I will be your host today, along with my dear colleague, who I am sure many of you already know due to his long-standing experience and expertise in the world of additive manufacturing, Dr. Michael Schwisky.
Thank you, Paulina, and hello, everyone. We're so glad to see that so many of you have joined us for this event today. I hope you all are safe and well, and are as excited as we are for this event, for this first Materials Matter session by Sandvik. So, Paulina, what is on our agenda for today?
Well, to kickstart the series, we will be zooming in on the use, potential, and impact of titanium and 3D printing on the medical segment. Along with this group of experts up here on the screen in a few seconds, hopefully, we are going to start off with a materials technology deep dive, some additive manufacturing know-how, a peek at one of the most innovative titanium applications to date, and then finish off with a look at one of our ongoing research projects. So, along with me and Michael in the studio today, we have another one of our highly esteemed colleagues. Dr. Peter Herlin, welcome.
Oh, thank you, Paulina, and hello. And hello, everybody, and it's fantastic that you can join this webinar.
Yeah, I suppose you're as excited as I am. So, Peter, you are sort of wearing two hats here today. Is that true?
Yes, it's true. So I have, let's say, one hat as a moderator. I will host a Q&A session in the end of the session. And I welcome you all to send in the questions via Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. So please do that. We are very keen to give you the answers. And then I also will have a presentation together with Paul as an expert. But we'll come to that later.
So a dual mission it is. And speaking of those comments, do you happen to have anything here to start us off with?
Yes, I sure do. We have one viewer that wants to know what Sandvik has to offer for the medical AM sector that other suppliers cannot do. And for starters, it can be said that Sandvik has a proud and unique history in developing products together with our customer in close collaboration. And Mikael, actually, why don't you come over here and join me? And perhaps you can give some input to this and our history.
Thank you, Peter. And yes, I mean, throughout the history of Sandvik, we have always sought close collaboration with our customers. It is crucial for any material company worth the name to fully understand the demand set by the customers' applications. I mean, this is equally true for any application within the medical field, especially when combining it with a new technology such as additive manufacturing. And also, when we are presenting Sandvik additive manufacturing, we talk about three main process steps, manufacturing steps: plan it, print it, and perfect it. It is essential to understand and master all these steps to ensure a successful additive process. And one of the things that distinguish Sandvik is that we have the whole titanium production under one roof. From producing the bars for making the electrodes, atomizing the metal powders, the additive manufacturing, and the post-processing. This ensures a unique traceability of the Sandvik titanium material used in manufacturing process. We have also invested in different metal additive manufacturing processes, such as powder bed fusion, both laser and electron beam, binder jetting, and stereolithography, to fully understand the different possibilities with these additive technologies. Titanium and additive manufacturing is a perfect match. The biocompatibility of titanium and the well-defined additive processes for the material makes it possible to produce complex, tailor-made components for customized medical application. The trends in implant material goes back to the first use of bamboo pegs for dental implants in ancient China, to the first metal used by the Egyptians for dental implants, to more modern times when various noble methods were tried with limited success. The great breakthrough came in the 1950s, when titanium was first tried as an implant material. Good bone ingrowth was observed, and titanium alloys have been the first choice of materials for implant and medical devices thereafter. The human population is growing older, and we are being more active for a longer part of our life. This leads to an increased demand for more implants. It is estimated that 30 million people currently are in the need of implant replacement. It is estimated that here in Sweden, we perform approximately 25,000 hip replacement annually, and that is on a population of 10 million people. In the US, more than 1 million replacements were done in 2017, and it's believed that this figure will increase to approximately 4 million replacement in 2030. So how can Sandvik contribute to this increased demand? Let us update you on where we are right now.
That is a good idea, Michael. Let's actually start by diving straight into our first segment, which is going to be on more material focus and production capabilities. And guiding us through this, we have you, Peter, who is also the research leader and technical sales professional here at Sandvik Additive Manufacturing. And then I would also like to welcome up on the screen, joining in from Neath, UK, Dr. Paul Davies. You are the Technical Solutions Manager here with us. Nice to see you, Paul.
Nice to see you all. Thank you.
And hello, Paul. Nice to see you too. And actually, before we started, we got the question from a viewer, and I like to fit in this one because I think it can fit into our presentation also quite well. The viewer wondered about the typical metal powder properties and where we produce our powder. Is that something that you can answer?
Certainly, Peter. Thank you. Well, the key parameters, I would say, for metal powders include, of course, the chemical composition, the powder size distribution, and the shape or the morphology of the powder, which all combine to influence the flow characteristics of the powder, which are very important for additive manufacturing processes. We actually manufacture powders in the UK, based at Sandvik Osprey, which is in a small town called Neath in South Wales, where we have 8 inert gas atomizing towers, operating both argon and nitrogen gas, with a unique set of powder sizing capabilities from large industrial sieves to air classification units, producing powders with an average size between 80 and 5 microns. And one of the atomizing towers actually is dedicated to aluminium powders, and the entire facility is certified to AS9100D aerospace certification. So Peter, how does this compare to the production in Sweden?
Yeah, well, thank you for the question. And when it comes to Sweden, we have 2 atomization towers. One is for nickel bases and iron-based alloys. It's the VIGA, we call it. It's a vacuum induction gas atomization. And then we have the EIGA process, that is the electron inert gas atomization process that we use. It is, let's say, sometimes difficult to keep the abbreviations and let's say understand them, but we use VIGA and EIGA. We can for sure produce powders with the largest powder particle size of 250 micrometers, and then we go down in size. Paul, I was thinking, how long has we been making the powder, and how many grades are we doing today?
Sandvik actually has a very long history of manufacturing metal powders, more than 40 years, producing powders since 1979. And we have a very large database of metals, more than 2,000 in fact, covering probably the widest range of alloy powders on the market, including stainless steels, which are used in metal injection molding, for example, cobalt chrome alloys, which are used in additive manufacturing for the production of crown restorations and bridges, as well as orthodontic brackets produced by metal injection molding, and many other types and classifications of alloy. How does this compare to production in Sweden, Peter?
Yeah, well, in the Viga plant that we have, we do nickel-based superalloys mainly, but also some really complicated iron-based seals, where it's of high interest to have a clean product, as clean as possible. And then in the Eiga plant we use, that we inaugurated last year, we atomize the titanium 6, aluminium 4 vanadium as a start. We do 2 different grades. When it comes to the powder then, and I talked about a little bit about the let's say the general, I mean, alloys that we do, but when it comes to powder characteristics, what about them, Paul? I mean, how do you characterize them?
Well, actually, there's a characterization of the powders is very important, from the shape of the powders, where we can see the examples on the micrographs, and the spherical shape typically produced by gas atomized powder process. So they're spherical but not perfect, but they also involve a melting process, which is inherently clean, melted under inert gas, typically has low oxygen levels and low levels of impurities. High tap density, so you can pack the powder in the powder bed, and with refined microstructures, and this leads to enhanced properties in the product. And
you speak about enhanced microstructures and so, but what about the size? Does that matter when it comes to which process it's used in?
Absolutely. The size is tailored to the different manufacturing process, in fact. And additive manufacturing has a number of different technologies, from direct energy deposition, where powders are provided from 150 microns to 53 microns, the powder bed fusion processes of electron beam and laser beam, where using mid-size fractions, classic sizes of 53 to 15 microns. And then you have new emerging additive manufacturing processes like binder jet, and fine powder technologies like metal injection molding, and even the superfine powders less than 15 microns of micro injection molding. So Peter, perhaps you could tell us about the titanium powder production process in Sweden.
For sure, I can do it. This is a movie about it that shows that we use an electrode that we put down into induction coil that is it's conical at the end. So we hit this part up and it starts to melt, and as you can see, droplets are started to fall, and then it's a small melt stream is created, and a lot of things happens inside, and you get curious, what is this? And schematically said, when the droplets goes down, it's more like a stream that are then disintegrated to small droplets by gas, and these droplets are then cooled into particles, and they are solidified and goes down into a beaker here in the sift. This beaker then collects all the powder particles that we want to have, so to say, and then we move it over to a sizing facility where we size the powder into the exact powder particle size distribution that our customer desires, or the process that they use really need. And related to that then, we also have a packing station that is under inert gas condition, and also the entire line here, production line including the sizing, also have inert gas to protect the titanium from any oxygen pickup or cross-contamination. We don't want that. I should say also a typical, let's say, grade that we use, or 2 typical grades today, is the class 5 and class 23 titanium 6 aluminium 4. The class 5 is somewhat higher in oxygen, has a higher strength, but the class 23 is really pure, and it's fantastic for medical applications. Down here to the right, I should say this is a typical certificate that our customers get. And just to show how precise we are with the powder particles size, this is the mean size, 42.3 for this powder lot that has been sent to a customer. These are the small sizes that we are working with then. One can imagine that it is a challenge to get the right powder to the right customer, but we do it in a good way.
Peter, what does the powder look like?
Yes, and here you see a typical micrographs of the powders. So one can say it's quite spherical, it flows quite well, and it is a good mix of the particle sizes that we want, in this case between 63 and 20 microns. As you can see to the right here is a cross-section of a powder particle that shows that it's fully alloyed. So it's the same alloy composition all through the powder particle. And a typical measure that I mentioned, that is flowability. And typically we pour the powder into a small funnel and measure the time it goes through. And for this powder, it takes slightly below 30 seconds, more precisely 28 seconds for 50 grams to pass this small funnel. So it's we are very proud over this product that is relatively new for us then. And
does the titanium alloy powder come to international standards?
Yes, it do. And actually today it is a somewhat new field. There are standards. As mentioned earlier, we have certificates. It's the AS 9100D, as you can see, and also the ISO 13485. The first one is for aerospace and the second one is for medtech industries. And this ensures our way of working is a good way to deliver a high quality product with good traceability to our customers all over the world. But looking a little bit more specifically into standardization, we also have the ASTM F3049 that is for powders for additive manufacturing, all the various processes that are used. And then we have the ASTM F2924 and F3001. And these are for the TIE 64 grade 5 and 23 respectively.
Thank you so much, Peter, and thank you, Paul, for that rundown. If we have you back at your computer, Peter, I think we promised you an interactive session, so I think it's time for another question.
Yes, sure. Let's see. We have one question here from a viewer then. He asked about the additive manufacturing here, and despite some key advantages, there is so much hype about the AM processes. And to achieve process economy and in the AM industries, what do we need to do further than the viewer wonder?
Well, I would say that is actually quite a perfect question for me to announce our next segment, which is focusing a little bit more on the additive manufacturing processes. So to answer that, I would like to welcome another two of our colleagues here from Sandvik Additive Manufacturing, Dr. Harald Kissel, who's the R&D manager, and Dr. Leandro Feitosa, who is an R&D engineer in powder technology. Welcome, both of you. I'm throwing you straight into the fire here. What do you have to say to this?
Hello, everyone, and hello, Paulina. Thank you for that. Welcome also Harald, my colleague here. And I think this question relates perfectly to the work that he has been doing right now. So, Harald, do you want to talk a bit about the process economy?
Yes, sure. This is one of our main targets when qualifying a material for a certain AM process. However, this is not the first goal we are after. The first target is always to achieve the desired quality, which depends, of course, a bit on the industry segment we are working for. Once that's done, the quality is right, we focus on improving cost and lead time of the AM build by optimizing the set of print parameters that we have. And what we see in the video that we will be showing now is the print process for powder bed fusion laser. So that's the process that we focus on in our webinar today. And that's the process that we use intensively with titanium in our R&D and production.
Oh, thank you for that, Harald. That's a very interesting video. But when you mention the parameter optimization, what do you mean by that exactly?
Yeah, parameter optimization is an iterative process. We basically vary the energy density of the laser. That means the energy input into the powder during the print process, and print then test cubes in a design of experiment arrangement. Then we cut and polish the cubes and analyze them under a microscope to get the relative density and the feedback on the kind of defects. And what you see on the diagram on the left, that shows a relative, that shows a range of different input energies. Where the energy input is too low, you have low relative density, and there you see a lack of fusion. And where the energy input is just right, you get up to full density, and this is what you want to see.
All right. Well, so just to make sure that our viewers understand. So first we achieve the right quality, and that means microstructure, and then you increase the powder layer thickness. So that relates to the build-up speed. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. And of course, we do spot checks, doing tensile tests all along the way to get an outlook on the mechanical properties that we achieve. The diagram, when we go back to the presentation, the diagram on the right-hand side shows again this sweet spot in the middle section where the material gets very close to full density. You see also a third region to the right-hand side where the density again gets lower. And this is where you get an over-melting of the powder and then you receive gas pores. And that's also undesired. And all these three regions can be seen in the 60 micrometer parameter optimization that you see on the screen. Then I should add that 60 micrometer is of course not the end of the story. We are working on pushing this envelope further and further to drive cost out of the process. The trick really is to produce and tailor a powder that spreads very well and can be melted to high quality, even when optimizing for cost.
I must say that sounds very appealing. Anything else you want to add in the optimization run?
Yes, of course. There's a bunch of other parameters in a laser printer that you can adjust, and I could talk for hours about this. We adjust contour parameter to improve the surface roughness. We determine maximum inclination angle. We optimize parameters for support. We build a lot of statistics to be compliant with our internal quality standards and to prove process robustness. Up till now, we have reviewed titanium on 5 different platforms from 3 different machine vendors in-house. Working with the Swiss M4M Center project we will talk later about, we will add 3 more machine vendors to this know-how. In some cases, we even do the material qualification in collaboration with a machine vendor. So just imagine the competence that you can build up when you process different titanium powders on a variety of laser printer systems and analyze this all in one place. Now I've talked a lot, Leandro. Let me turn this to you. I just said analyze this all in one place. So how do we analyze the material properties in this iterative process? And tell me, how does that material data compare?
Well, Harold, you're very right. That competence would be very valuable for us. And the process of comparison of material data starts with the microstructure. So as you can see on the screen, differences in microstructures after printing will usually indicate us whether we have a stable process or not. And from there, we can take further actions to mitigate these observations. Other improvements can be done, such as stress relief treatments or hot isostatic pressing. And this is when you have more defects, such as porosity. So Harold, to be able to provide our customers and partners with the best set of data, we must go to these 2 analyses.
Okay, I understand now, but what can we tell about our microstructure when we compare it with other atomization methods out there?
Wow, that is an important question. And as you can see on the slide, I placed it on the top, the microstructure that was obtained for the print done with the Osprey titanium powder, obtained after stress relief and also the heat treatment. And besides some slightly coarsening of the phases, These microstructures are very well in line with what we expect for this alloy. And when we consider even other methods like the plasma atomization, we can see that there's very small difference between them. The next image also even shows us a fracture surface for a impact toughness that we did. And we can see overall that we have a very ductile surface that indicates a very good plasticity of our material.
So it appears, after all, that the Osprey titanium powder shows very good characteristics. What about the mechanical properties? Are they also good?
Yeah, that's a fair question, Harold. And most of the viewers will want to know this. So when we print using a 30 micron layer thickness, we see very good mechanical properties. We can even achieve tensile and impact toughness properties that are at least comparable to the plasma atomized powders, as you can see on the screen. And especially when you take into account the error margin. So we achieve this by a very good control of the oxygen content and the process parameters, like you mentioned just now.
That's very reassuring to hear. And now I wonder if this trend will be repeated if our customers want to speed up their processing time and print using, like, for example, 60 micrometer layer thickness. Can you show us something about this?
Yeah, absolutely. We see one example of that in the next slide, for example, that when we compare a 30 micron layer to a 60 micron using the same machine, that in this case is the EOS M290, we can achieve properties that are just as good or even better for the 60 micron, as you can see in the both images that I'm showing. And these are key tensile properties that most of our customers want, such as the yield strength and the elongation. So yeah, there you have it. It's a very important message.
Well, thank you, Leandro, for sharing this information. I'm sure our audience will appreciate knowing where we stand with our titanium powder. And with that, I will pass the word back to Paulina. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Harald and Leandro. It wasn't Paulina, it was me. So one great example how this technology is applied hands-on today is by a highly innovative company producing advanced prosthesis for cranial reconstructive surgery. So with further ado, I would like to welcome Dr. Kajsa Björklund, Director Technical Operation at OssDsign, to tell us a bit more about their operations and mission, how they're putting titanium to good use in some of the most advanced medical implants to date. So welcome, Kajsa.
Thank you so much, Mikael. Thank you for inviting me for this exciting webinar. So as a start, I just would briefly like to go into the next slide, showing you what OssDsign is about. We're an innovator and manufacturer of implants for bone regeneration. We have our main office and production in Uppsala, so quite close to Sandviken. But even though we're based in Sweden, we help patients worldwide. Mainly today, it's US, Europe, and soon also Japan. We have around 45 employees, where about 30 are placed in Uppsala. So just on the next slide, I would like to start with why titanium is so important for us and why it actually was I would say, a game changer for OssDsign as a company and for our technology. So the technology that we have developed, which was a collaboration between Karolinska Hospital and the Uppsala University Ångström Laboratory, is a titanium reinforced calcium phosphate technology. And actually the technology was not just, wow, this is a cool technology. It was actually developed to solve a real clinical problem that the plastic surgeon had when he met patients. It was actually some of the conventional implants like pure titanium or plastic in contact, especially with soft tissue. You could, for instance, see a higher rate of infections. So by using this technology instead, you can lower the rate of infections and you will actually get a much better bone ingrowth. But at the start, our technology was not based on 3D printed titanium. You know, we use titanium in other shapes. For instance, we had laser cut sections, but that limited us regarding the size of the implant, but also the shapes and the geometry. So thanks to the great advancements in 3D printing titanium for, I would say, maybe the last 10 years, going from more prototype to be able to use it for production. We have, since 2014, used this in our products to be able to make the custom-made implants. And as you can see on the next page, the implant is made of, I would say, two main components. We have the 3D printed titanium mesh that stands for the stability and the protection. And then we have our unique calcium phosphate formulation that we then mold and actually have on top of the titanium mesh, which stands for a perfect aesthetic outcome, a perfect fit. And at the end, this will make it generate outstanding healing properties due to this combination, especially due to the chemical composition of the ceramic. All these custom-made implants, they are based on that we get the CT image from the surgeon on the patient's cranial defect. And then by using CAD, we can design the implant and all the components needed. And finally, put them together to get this highly innovative implant. So moving on, I would like to highlight, I think, what 3D printing really have enabled us to do. So it enabled us to make these custom-made implants, both with the mechanical properties, as I mentioned before, with the combination of the bone regenerative ability, which no other competitor have in the field of cranioplasty. We have also been able to, I would say, a ready-to-go implant. You don't need any additional plates to fixate the implant. We already have the fixation arms as part of the titanium mesh. So the surgeon just can use ordinary surgical screws. And I would also say that we have been able to do very extreme advanced geometries, and we have also been able to help very complex patient cases thanks to this technology. For instance, we have a patient where we reconstructed 83% of the patient's whole skull due to a large tumor defect. And actually, these kind of patients, when you have, for instance, have a tumor that you need to remove in the bone, we also have developed custom-made surgical tools, where we also have used titanium, but also used plastic. So I would say not just thanks to 3D printing of titanium, but 3D printing as a whole technology. OssDsign have been able to provide surgeons and patients with the best custom-made implants and the best custom-made surgical tools to actually tailor it for the patient's defect and actually improve the patient's quality of life. So I think moving on, handing over to Mikael. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaisa. Yes. I mean, we have a small movie here showing how we are printing the skeleton or the net for OssDsign, and afterwards we are depowdering this in our Renishaw 500Q machine. So you will see the net coming out of the powder bed, and it's the excess of powders being removed. So even though the net structure or the skeleton is quite delicate, it is important that you obtain a full dense structure to have the right mechanical properties, which you can be seen in this micrograph then of the titanium printed.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you so much, Kaisa. I'd say it's becoming evident that one major aspect of optimizing additive manufacturing for the medtech industry is the cooperation and partnerships between a variety of organizations, right?
Yes, that's definitely true.
Yeah, and on that note, I would like to welcome our second guest to this session, Mr. Nicolas Boudebin. You are heading the Swiss M4M Center, working to adapt and adjust additive manufacturing for specifically medtech use. Welcome, Nicolas.
Thank you, Paulina. Thank you for the invitation. It's a great pleasure to walk you through with Harald together today into a great initiative we are developing here in Switzerland. We have the aim here to really push the technology transfer of additive manufacturing into the medtech market. This has been recognized in the early days that we need like a bridge to provide the great research an opportunity to target the market. And as we can see next, this was impulsed from the Swiss government in the slide. That means that we provide a structure that is regulated under a research law. And we did apply for a project, an initiative that has to be supported from the industry, that has been non-profit, but also according a private-public partnership, as we do a lot in Switzerland. It's a common way to merge the interest of the research and the industry. This commitment from the industry is very important, and in the early days when we discuss with different industrial partners, we were absolutely willing to involve the specialists on board. And it's also the reason why we took the discussion with Sandvik, and especially Harald in these days, to build up a great collaboration. And I would ask you, Harald, on your point of view, what was the motivation for Sandvik to be part of it?
It's pretty straightforward. We see a great future for AM within the medical sector, and in particular for implants. And then if this center is going to be successful, it will contribute to improve healthcare, and it will contribute to improve patients' life. And Sandvik is just proud to be part of this endeavor. And besides, we feel quite honored that the Swiss government trusts us as a partner in this project. So, Nicolas, what is the vision of this center?
Yeah, I think the vision is very simple. At the end, we need to provide a way to facilitate the adoption of additive manufacturing in the medtech industry, to give the opportunity to many companies willing to understand this technology in a better way, to access this technology in its complexity, to touch it and to try it. But it also requires a change in thinking. Today, you do not address additive manufacturing like you address other manufacturing technology. It's very important at the beginning of a project that this is a mindset in order to correctly start the activities and bring value to the patient at the end. We will provide basically into the center in infrastructure. As we can see next, we did build up in the last months a great opportunity for different interests to touch closer additive manufacturing. But additive manufacturing is just a part of the story. You have to address a complete supply chain, starting from powder management, going into post-processing, surface treatment, but also in the medical industry, cleaning and sterilization. If you master everything under a quality roof, we heard about this 13485 previously, I think you will master to touch in a correct way, in a risk-free way, the patient. And Harald, what can you provide as competence at Sandvik in order to promote powder management?
Yeah, when it comes to powder management, there are actually a few projects where we can learn from each other and improve, as our facilities are running under the same qualification. So now within this project, we look together at degradation of titanium powder, the effects of degradation on the powder and on the part quality. Then powder recycling is another big topic we are working on to support sustainability and cost effectiveness, of course, of the process. And then we are working on solutions for effective powder handling and storage as well. Moving on to our next topic, Nicolas, that we wanted to raise in this talk. It's about digitalization. It's a buzzword that is nowadays very often used. And what I learned is that the Swiss M4M Center is also working on digitalization. Can you describe what that means for you and how additive manufacturing fits together with this?
Absolutely, Harald. I think you are right. It's a buzzword. Everyone knows that digitalization can mean everything, but at the end, it's at the core of our activities. If you want to push additive manufacturing in the medtech market, you need to address this chain. This chain starts with the patient. I mean, you need to take patient data, be able to compile them in a way that you can plan a surgical tool, you can plan a surgical treatment and also an implant. This implant has to be then manufactured in a certain way. And what is the best manner to address custom-made devices had we see before in the talk, in the digital way. That's what we do here. After a great planning and a great design, we print the implants and try to support the surgery with our know-how towards a successful patient treatment. So basically, if we can summarize our activities, I think the M4M Center has an aim to develop a production chain. This production chain should be able to be operated to offer a way for our customer to use additive manufacturing in order to prove the technology. When it is done, we have a big interest to transfer this know-how back to the industry. And it's the primary goal is to see many companies around us using additive manufacturing and provide solution for the medtech industry. And this in order to provide value. To do that, of course, it's a big work, and we need partners. We build up an ecosystem, as said before, of partners, specialists that are able to support us in different topics, from powder to clean medical devices. And I think this is a uniqueness of this concept here, is that it's not just one company, but it's a company with a great backpack, with a lot of know-how, a lot of competence, and also interest in providing a value. Especially Harald, maybe also on your point of view, what is the value, what is the gain to be part of such ecosystem?
We are a powder producer, and as a powder producer, we are sitting right at the beginning of the value and the production chain. And we are really looking forward to embed our production, our powder production in this ecosystem to see how it fits and to get feedback from all the subsequent production processes, all along up to feedback from hospitals and surgery and from the lifetime of an implant in a patient. And our goal really is to tailor the powder and to optimize the process for the requirements of medical applications. How does that sound to you, Nicolas?
I think it's perfect, and I think it's over the last months, we were very happy to have you on board. I mean, we had great discussion also with Leandro about new ways how to develop powders, organize storage, shipments. And I think it's the only way to move forward. And thank you very much for your commitment. And in this regard, I will hand back to Paulina.
Well, once again, it's not Paulina, it's me, Nicolas. Sorry to disappoint you. But thanks a million, Harald and Nicolas, for enlightening us about the M4M Center. And I mean, it's all about collaboration and getting that customer feedback on our materials that we want. So, all right then, Paulina. We've saved the best for the last, right?
I guess you could say that, Michael. We are going to try and see if we can get all of our experts up on our screen here, because it's time to go to the Q&A. So, Peter, Do you by chance have a good question to get us going?
Yes. Believe me, I got plenty.
Oh, that's good.
So,
Glad to hear.
Yes. So we start with one question from one viewer then, and that is, what are the top 5 requirements to adopting titanium printed parts? And this question refers to customer approval processes to accepting titanium printed parts, either in-body acceptance or for other external applications like surgical tools, components, etc. So I think that it could be a good idea to look into the value chain and follow that. So I start to ask Paul, do you have any input here?
Absolutely. Starting with a quality raw material. And I think that's very important. All the way, the traceability of that material back to the source, starting with the ingot as we saw, and then the atomization of the powder and the characterization of that powder, and ultimately compliant with the appropriate international standards for additive manufacturing, and leading on to the next stage of the printing.
Okay, thank you. It's good to know then. I mean, it's crucial then to keep the traceability and also have, I mean, the good quality of the powder as such then. And going forward then in the value chain, we talked a little bit about machines and so in the M4M Center. So I turn to Nicholas and wonder, do you have any reflections about this question?
Of course I have. I think for us, the most important is to rely on a safe and traceable material. What we receive here at the incoming inspection needs to fulfill the quality standard, but also fit into our process. Be able to have a partner that is supporting us to organize all these processes is mandatory to have a success.
Oh, thank you for this input. Kaisa, as very close to the end users then, and also, as we heard, a user of and producer of surgical tools. What is your reflections from OssDesign?
Yeah, so if you're interested in starting your own company, if you are a company, the first thing you need to have in place is the ISO system, quality management system for medical devices, as some of you already mentioned, the 13485. That is really crucial to be able to follow the processes needed to prove that your product is safe for the end user. I think it's also important to think about, is it this technology that's the best technology for the product that you're going to use for that the patient needs? And also really define what the product is going to be used for and the classification. So the whole regulatory environment is really important to really know about, since it's different in Europe versus US and so on. And I think also when you start, should you print yourself or should you find a supplier? And if you're going to use a supplier, it's really important that you have a supplier that you can rely on, that preferably also have ISO 13485 in place going forward. So I think at the end of the day, it's all about the patient safety. And that's why we need all these robust processes that the quality management system would supply for you.
Oh, thank you for this input from all of you. Let's see, trying to summarize then 5 requirements. I mean, we have this, let's say, really close loop when it comes from powder to the part. If it is an implant or if you have a surgical tool, you need to have it, let's say, closed loop all the way. So that's of importance, and I guess that you have this loop today. Kaisa or Nicholas, maybe you are aware of that. I mean, if you compare to conventional materials or products that are made, so that we can, let's say, add the additive manufacturing parts into, so to say. And then we have the regulatory environments, maybe thinking of additive manufacturing as a new process as such. Do you think, I mean, is it any, let's say, requirement related to this process that could be something that one really want to make in order to make it possible to implement additive in more implants and in the daily use of implants then?
Are you asking me? I wasn't sure if you...
It's an open question, so Kajsa, as you start to talk, please.
Okay. So where to start? I think depending on the type of end product, the classifications, will it be implanted? Will it stay in the patient forever? Or will it just be used temporary during a surgery? That's, I think, is really important to think about regarding this. Yeah.
Okay.
I think if I can add, it's all a question about risk-based approach. At the end, you provide a risk analysis, and according to that, you need to put the measure in place according to your quality system in order to provide the best quality. It can be that you test everything on your device or just a part of it, but this needs to be according to the regulation in place. Today still MDD, tomorrow MDR, and also FDA if you want to send that in the US. But at the end, this needs risk-free and safe for the patient, and it's what really matters.
Okay, thank you. And then we have another question here. We jump around a little bit, I must say, but we have a lot of questions. So I try to cover as much as possible here in the different areas that has been shown here. And I turn to actually Leandro and Harald. You mentioned in your speak about, let's say, working with titanium powder and so. And Nicholas, you talked a little bit about risks, but for Leandro and Harald, then, do you see any risks then that we have to consider when working with metal powder in additive manufacturing? I know there has been some or quite a lot of work doing that in Sandvik at the AM Center.
It's a reactive material, and for this reason you need to have special safety precautions. We can maybe start with Leandro with the powder production process, if you want to go first, Leandro.
Yes, well, to complement what Harald says, during the sieving process, it's a very strict control that we must have in place in order to be sure that we have the correct powder size distribution. Otherwise, if we have a very fine material, for example, this could endanger our system. So it's crucial that we have something in place to control that.
And then if you move further on during the printing, of course you need to have special vacuum cleaning, a special powder handling system, special vacuum cleaning, special sieving. The good thing with processing titanium in the laser printer is that the grain size, the particle size distribution is quite coarse. So it is okay to process. If you look into other processes like binder jetting, there you really need to process titanium under a controlled atmosphere because the powder is quite fine and would react with normal atmosphere.
Okay, so a quite explosive product as well as the market, I must say. We have a question related to the market, and I wonder, maybe Mikael can take that one.
Shoot.
Yeah, I mean, Sandvik is a large group, Sandvik Group, and I mean, going into additive manufacturing and titanium powder, I mean, does that reflect how it looks on the market today when it comes to additive manufacturing and the related powder business? Is it a, let's say, good force to go forward and increasing volumes? How do one look on the future?
I mean, as I mentioned in my talk, I mean, the demand for medical implants is expected to grow quite significantly as the population grows older. So there will be a demand for titanium as a material. From an additive perspective, titanium have been one of the materials that has definitely been the driver for these technologies, both for medical and for aerospace. So it's a material really suitable for the additive process because you are really putting the material where you need it for your component. And from a Sandvik perspective, this has been something that has missed out from our portfolio. We have filled that gap right now to have, as Paul mentioned, probably the widest offering of metal powders on the market.
It sounds very reassuring, and I hope that there are machine users out there today that are looking into this, and also, let's say, designers looking for, let's say, optimizing new parts also. Because titanium and additive manufacturing is here to stay. And we have another question, or actually it's two that I've grouped together then, and here I turn a little bit, and maybe I can give some support, but it is related to powders and our product portfolio that Mikael touched upon. And do you have plans then to produce magnesium alloy powder for additive manufacturing? I think it might be also directed to the medtech sector. And also the second question is, do you have gamma titanium aluminide grade powder?
Interesting questions. As I mentioned, we have a very broad range and also very comprehensive safety analysis and also different processes in validating materials development. And so we're building a bigger portfolio. There are some inherent risks with some of these materials as they are reactive and easily oxidized, for example. We process aluminium powders, as I mentioned, but it's aluminium, silicon, magnesium used in automotive additive manufacturing for prototypes typically, and lightweighting for aerospace. Magnesium could be in the portfolio once it's completed its full safety review, and likewise titanium aluminide also.
And to add there also, it is so that we are always interested in new alloys. So if you have an idea, please do not hesitate to contact us with any requests, no matter what alloy it is. And we look into it and give you a straight answer.
And I'm gonna, speaking of straight answers, I'm gonna give you some heads up here about we are almost out of time, but I'm thinking let's squeeze one last quick question in.
Okay. Okay, I make it the powder one then.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's because I'm working with powder mainly. So again, I turn to Paul then, and this question is it's a good question actually, because we spoke about atomization, and we spoke a little bit about gases that are used, and usually it is mentioned that there is nitrogen and argon, but can you atomize with other gases than nitrogen and argon?
Well, gas atomization literally is rocket science, by the way. And the reason nitrogen is used is because it's one of the most abundant gas in air, roughly 78%. And argon is the third after oxygen. And oxygen is typically taken out of air for the use in industrial processes like steel production, for example, as well as medical applications. So from a cost-effective point of view, nitrogen is the most abundant inert gas. Argon's the most abundant noble gas to protect sensitive alloys like titanium. And while there may be some advantages in processing with gases like helium, for example, experimenting with different atomic weights, molecular weights, from a cost-effective point of view, argon and nitrogen cover most bases, I would say.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Peter, and everyone. I really wish we could keep going, but we are out of time. However, if you feel like your question wasn't answered, rest assured that we will summarize all of the questions along with our answers and publish these on the campaign site, metalpowder.sandvik/webinar, and we will also distribute these answers as we distribute the file, the recorded version of this episode.
So, thank you all of you who are participating today. I also want to thank our experts and guests for joining us, and I hope to see you all soon in the next episode of Additive by Sandvik, Materials Matters. Thank you all and stay safe.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.